DPS centered Klingon Hegta level 50 ship.
Okay.
I made it a phaser cannon build.
Yep, nice.
I went phaser because I wanted to use the quantum phase
Good set.
and then I put points in everything that had to do with power.
Oh boy.
I put 1 point into hull plating.
Only
I
one?
did put 3 points into shields,
What?
and then I put temporal operative as my secondary that can still benefit from the entropic rider.
Oh my god.
You could trade out the scatter volley for cannon rapid fire and still be absolutely fine.
PvE.
Pretty fairly good setup.
Fairly good setup. This should give you quite a bit of DPS. With good piloting, it will it'll serve you nicely.
Computer and program.
Well, what to do, what to do, what to do. Everybody knows I hate bad advice being given to players who have limited resources and can't afford to waste them. But this is a big step, responding to another channel in this way and essentially challenging their advice. But I'm just giving my opinion. It may not be totally right, but I do know though, it'll be of better quality than them. Alright, I'm going to do it. Hello everyone, Snipey47A here, doing something that I've never done before, and that is a video response to another STO based YouTube channel. It will be easy for another channel to react badly to this, but I hope that they see that I've tried to keep this about the build that they've put out there and that there's nothing personal about it. Everyone knows I will jump into any conversation where poor advice is being given. So much bad advice circulates around this game and players end up wasting their resources. I do not know everything in this game, I don't claim to, but I know enough to stay out of trouble and when the basics aren't being followed. So, the structure of this video will replicate their build and then I'll pass it. I'll then compare it to a build that I would do, staying true to the budget DPS theme of what they proposed. A full cost breakdown for both builds will be shown. I will also explain why I believe some of their choices in their build are wrong. Now, some general information. All this was done on the Tribble server to reflect the changes being made to the game in just over a week now. And so close to such a change, any advice should take that into account. Finally, I know they spoke about different starship trait options during their video, but the build link that they presented didn't have any space reputation traits or starship traits. Therefore, I made the decision just to run the 4 space reputation traits that many consider to be standard, and I didn't slot any starship traits at all. And finally, I only did 1 run in each build in the Japori system on normal difficulty. Okay, let's begin. So they have chosen to stay with Mark 12 for everything. Mark 12 quantum dual heavy cannon, 2 phaser dual heavy cannons with crit D ×2 and damage modifiers, and the quantum phase torpedo. The standard quantum phase 3-piece space set, deflector, impulse engine and shield. They're also running a fleet spire warp core. Now, I don't have access to a Klingon fleet here on Tribble, so I picked up a core that is as close as I could get. It's a crafted core. It resists energy drain and it has a 15% weapons power reduction. Now, the fleet core has a 66% boost to EPS, a 10% reduction to weapons power drain, and there is also additional damage done by the amp modifier. I'm okay with running this core though, because it'll be on both builds and therefore the results will be relevant to each other. Then in the rear, there's a phaser turret accuracy ×2 crit D and the kinetic cutting beam. Now, the issue I have with the Mark 12 weapons, the difference between Mark 12 and Mark 14 in terms of damage is massive. It's 270% at the base damage level. It's huge. I'm not talking about Mark 14 gold either. I'm talking about an upgrade from Mark 12 very rare to Mark 14 very rare. Now onto their consoles. We have the Quantum Phase console and it's buffed to Drain X. The set bonuses are a boost to the torpedo when using either spread or high yield, and then you have the three-piece ability, which is the stabilizing beam. Then we have two Mark 12 neutronium consoles. Now these are bloody expensive, I've come to learn. The assimilated module for the crit bonus is next. Also the two-piece bonus with the cutting beam that has a proc that will negate the usage of weapons power when firing weapons, which incidentally in today's triple patch, Cryptic have now extended out to 5 seconds. And that I think is over 3 seconds. In their build they had two research lab consoles that have Drain X ×2, but like I said, no fleet, so I'm just running standard Mark 12 flow capacitor consoles. Again, the result will be relative between both of my tests, and finally they are running 3 phaser Mark 12 relays in very rare form. To quickly summarize their skill tree, one slot for hull healing, and they've got 2 slots for hull capacity. Healing on a ship that is this fragile is very important, as well as hull capacity. They've also put 1 slot each for shield healing and for shield capacity. Meanwhile, they've maxed out energy weapons, but they've put nothing in torpedoes. But the torpedo is meant to be one of the main stars of the build. Can't work that one out. Amazing job maxing out EPS, but wasting a point on impulse shunt. We're not, while not putting anything into impulse expertise, this made the ship extremely slow to fly and very, very frustrating. They maxed out Drain X, which is okay since Drain X does feature on this build, but I had a slightly different approach, which you'll see on my skill tree. 4 points into accuracy and 1 into defense. I can't see anything wrong with that. The next 2 really get me though. Now they've put 1 slot into hull resist. While players are losing a lot of resist from not having the fleet buff anymore, and only having 1 hull heal in their bridge officer stations that you'll see shortly, this isn't a good suggestion. And then they've gone and maxed out shield regeneration, which incidentally has got nothing to do with the shield heals that you apply to your ship. This is how fast the shields regenerate themselves. And they've also put maximum points into shield hardness, which negates energy, which negates damage. Now, putting anything into shield regeneration is an inefficient use of very valuable skill points. And putting points into hardness, while okay, I do question using all 3 of them. But awesomely, they have maxed out crits. Now the next one really gets to me too, actually. They have put points in every single power boost available. That's 9 points in total. Now I understand what they were trying to do, but it means cutting back in other vital areas. They've put 4 points in long distance targeting, which is good, as is hull penetration, but they didn't put any points into shield bleed through, and I don't understand that. And that's it. That's their tree. Does anyone notice what's missing here? That's right. There is no ultimate ability. For attack focused ship, Focus Frenzy is great. Okay, it gives you a damage buff, increasing firing cycle haste, and has a chance to reduce your ability cooldowns. I can't think for the life of me why they would suggest not having an ultimate ability of some description. Spec trees. Now they recommended running Intel Primary and Temporal Secondary. Now Intel Primary is fine, but the choice of Temporal Secondary for basically just Entropic Rider damage is not a good decision. For one, Entropic Rider is getting nerfed in 1 week, and they know this. And 2, even if it wasn't slotting a whole secondary tree for one reason, it's such a waste. The temporal tree itself works on the use of exotic damage abilities and damage over time abilities, at least in secondary form, okay? And none of this is being run on this build. In terms of traits, I didn't have enough time to get the point blank shot trait, so I'm running Warp Theorist instead. But having point blank shot is a good call. Now the 4 space reputation traits we're running is Orc's Power Config Offense from the Nukara rep, Precision for the 4% critical chance from the Romulan rep, Advanced Targeting Systems for the 16% critical severity from the Dyson rep, and the Tactical Advantage trait for extra hull pen from the Dyson rep also. Now onto bridge officer abilities, and this is what actually made me decide to do this video. They're running 3 attack patterns, 1 Omega and 2 Betas. Now while this does work, they're clearly missing a torp ability. The main reason to go quantum phase and utilize it to the max is with the torp. They want you then to maximize emergency powder weapons uptime by running 2 copies of it. Okay, but that is only left science to be your heals. Hazard emitters 2 and science team 1. Okay, onto my build. All my weapons are Mark 14, and my normal phaser dual heavy cannons and turret have better modifiers for attack captain. And the costs are at the end, and it didn't actually cost that much more. Instead of having the cutting beam, I got the biomolecular phaser turret from the 8472 rep, and the counter command tac console free from the mission called surface tension. Now the 2-piece bonus that both these items give is a 7.5% phaser damage buff at the category 2 level. Now this is like having one whole tac console plus at least another half attack console as well. Okay, and then you add the little bit extra phase damage that the tac console gives itself, you nearly got 2 tac consoles for slotting 1 console. Now, because I'm not running the cutting beam, I decided to change the assimilated module for the Romulan reputation console. That gives extra power and extra critical chance, and also gives extra Drain X, which is important to this build. Now, instead of getting you to spend 1.2 million EC on crafted neutronium consoles, get them from the fleet mine very cheaply for the lithium. and an extra EPS console. Now that we've buffed the skill tree with resist, we don't need to run 2 neutroniums anymore. We can allocate one of the engineering consoles to more EPS, which does have a DPS benefit. Okay, on to the skill tree. I have added more hull healing and removed the shield healing and shield cap points. The goal here is to hull tank a little and survive from a better buff layout, which you'll see shortly. Plus the extra DPS will kill things a lot faster. I put 4 points into projectiles to buff that torpedo. I also removed shunt and put 2 points into impulse expertise. The ship does move along very nicely now. I did cut out drain infection. I don't believe its DPS potential is on this type of build is anything special, but I did keep the the other 2 points in drain X. I went the same on their build with accuracy and defense. I put full points into resist and only 1 point into shield hardness. Crits are the same. I only put 1 point in weapons and engine power, giving 4.8 to each subsystem. Same choice with long distance targeting and hull pan, but I went with 2 points in shield bleed through as well, giving an extra 4.25% over and above the shield bleed through that's naturally on the foe. I put 2 points here to get warp core efficiency. This is important because it gives a bonus power the lower you have your presets, and 2 of your presets are always set to low power. And in this particular build, it is benefiting my shields and engines. Now I put max points in tack readiness. It's not going to benefit this build enough, but I needed to put the points somewhere to get the tack ultimate ability, and you'll see why very, very shortly. And finally, coordination protocols with the accuracy and damage buff going to my pets if I ever run any fleet support, and also to my team members. Now I'm running the pilot tree as primary and intel as secondary. Pilot is a very defensive tree and can help with survivability, which is needed badly on this build. You can't do DPS when you're dead. The changes I've made to personal traits is taking off Def Cannoneer and choosing projectile training to buff the torpedo. And again, in place of point blank shot, I'll go with Warp Theorist, but obviously point blank shot is the way to go. The rep traits have pretty much stayed the same. Now down to the buff abilities. I went with a very different approach here that is still very affordable to do and very effective. Now I forgot to mention earlier that on their build I was running no duty officers whatsoever, but on my build I'm running 3. There are 3 blue or rare technicians that reduce bridge officer cooldown when you select auxiliary to battery or aux to bat. These were quite inexpensive off the exchange, which you'll see at the end of the, which you'll see very, very shortly. This means you don't need to run 2 copies of anything except for aux to bat. And here's how it works. I'll activate some abilities. And now I'll press one of the aux to bats. See? Instant cooldown. So for TAC, I'm running Scatter Volleys 3, Torp Spread 3, Beta 1, and TAC Team 1. In the Lieutenant Commander Universal, I am running Emergency Powder Weapons 3, Aux to Bat 1, and Engineering Team 1. In the Lieutenant Universal, I'm running Aux to Bat 1 and Emergency Powder Shields 1. Science is running the same as their build. So in summary, what I've changed, I have buffed weapons by over 300% of base damage, and that's only taken an extra 8 or 9 days of resource gathering to achieve. I've made the buff abilities more relevant to the goals of the build, with efficiencies gained from aux to bat to cool down my abilities faster. I've increased survivability due to more hull heals and a more balanced skill tree running the TAC ultimate ability. comparing their build result to my build result. Okay, so their build did 8,701 DPS and it took them 160.5 seconds to do Japori normal. My build did 20,335 DPS, taking 104.7 seconds to do the same map. Now that's a DPS increase of 133%, or nearly 134% over their build, and I was able to do it about 35% quicker than them. Now to what each build cost. Now on their build, I can only estimate what they bought their phaser relays, neutronium consoles, and weapons for. Those prices are based off the exchange as of today, the April 18th. And they spent 4.66 million EC and 47,000 dilithium. That's about 6 days worth of refining. Now in my build, I spent less EC. I've spent 3.558 million. But I've spent a lot more dilithium upgrading my weapons. Okay, so it's 125,550 dilithium, which is 15 days of refining, so 9 full days more. But look, when you consider the upsides, you're doing a lot more DPS. You're much, more capable of surviving, and most of the build is still Mark 12 except for the weapons. Okay, thank you very much for watching my video there. I hope I was able to bring some common sense to this build. It's some of the decisions that this other channel made were not very well thought out. The build didn't really work together, and it was extremely easy to destroy. I just hope that if this other channel sees this, they'll learn something. Yeah, so I'll see you guys out there. Bye.